Welcome to the Finding Financial Freedom podcast with the Frugal Physician, where Dr. Disha Spath will be your companion on this exciting financial adventure. Get ready to conquer debt, build wealth, and embrace a mindful spending lifestyle that will empower you to live life on your own terms.
Welcome back to the Finding Financial Freedom podcast with the Frugal Physician, the podcast where we help doctors like you reclaim your time, discover purpose, and build the financial freedom to practice medicine on your own terms. If you've been thinking about leaving the grind of insurance-based medicine behind and stepping into the world of direct primary care, today's episode is exactly what you need. I'm honored to welcome an entrepreneurial force in the physician world, Dr. Nneka Unachukwu, better known as Dr. Una. Dr. Una is a board-certified pediatrician and founder of EntreMD, a company on a mission to help 100,000 physicians build profitable and seven-plus figure businesses. She leads the EntreMD Business School, hosts the EntreMD podcast, one of the top 1% of most downloaded shows, and is a best-selling author who's been featured in Forbes and twice on the Inc. 5000 list of fastest-growing companies in the United States. Whether you're just starting a DPC practice or trying to scale without burning out, Dr. Una brings the mindset, strategy, and real talk you need to grow your business while staying grounded in your purpose. So let's dive in. I'm so excited to get started. Dr. Una, welcome.
Thank you. Now I'm going to have to take you everywhere I go because that introduction is so good.
Oh, please do. I can't wait to learn from you. This is a slightly selfish episode on my part as I'm starting my own DPC and I have you on. I could not pass up the chance to talk to you about how you have built your business. I know you started your own practice. So please tell us a little bit about yourself first so that we can get your background.
Yeah, so I've had a really long, convoluted story, like how how I got here, but I think I started like, almost every physician. I graduated from my pediatric residency. I did that in Newark, Beth Israel in New
Mm-hmm.
Jersey. But it's in New Jersey, there's snow and all that stuff.
It's
So I was like, you know
cold.
what, I'm moving to the warmer part of the world. As I moved to Atlanta, I got a job. It was a really great job. I was working for this pediatrician who owned his own practice, but he was also a neonatologist. So for conflict of interest, he couldn't work there. So it's almost as though I was a solo practice owner in a way, even though I was employed. And so I worked there, and I still remember seeing my first patient, and I think that was the beginning of my starting point because I went in, I'm the attending now, the buck stops with me. I went in, saw the patient, made a diagnosis, wrote the script, all this out, walked out, like big boss, I just saw my first patient. And I was expecting to walk out and be excited, but I walked out and it was so anticlimactic. I remember thinking in that moment, I was like, okay, so I just did this and I'm going to do this 25 times a day till I retire. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. There is something wrong with this picture. I didn't know anything about anything. I didn't even like it hadn't crossed my mind to own a practice. I didn't know about coaching. I didn't know there was a whole world out there. I just knew whatever this is, I'm not going to do it. And that's where it started. It's like a good dissatisfaction. I'm like, something is wrong. There has to be more. That was the mindset that I had. And a series of things happened. A mentor would tell me, and it's time to start thinking about owning your own practice and, stuff like that. And I was so ignorant because I was thinking I'll hang the shingle, they will come. And so we started looking for a place for my practice, made the decision we're going to start, and started looking at places, started looking at websites, what do other people offer, look at their reviews, what are people mad about, and eventually signed a lease, started my own practice with the philosophy that I will hang the shingle and they will come. And to my shock, I hung the shingle and they did not come.
Mm.
And that was the first time it dawned on me that having great bedside manner, being a great pediatrician, all that stuff, that is not going to cut it. Like there are other skills required. And I just said, I don't have those skills. I'm a super shy, socially awkward, introverted introvert. I don't market, I don't sell. I'm a professional. We don't do things like that and all this stuff. And so I felt like that was it. Like I was stuck and my practice was where it was and it was never going to be better and all of those things. And I look at other practice, I'm like, they're different and I'm me. And I remember reading a Brian Tracy book and he said, all business skills are learnable. That was another pivotal moment for me. I was like, hang on. I may not know how to market, sell, run a team, do any of those things. For context, I didn't even hire anybody. I answered my own phones. I did my own billing. I worked up my own patients. I gave my own shots because I couldn't even bring myself to hire somebody. That's how bad it was. And I was like, I may not know these things, but I'm a physician. If there's anything I know how to do is how to learn. And that's when I started seeing that every problem that I have in my business is just something I don't know. I don't know and I'm not doing. That's the end. And so I started learning to market, learning to sell, learning to build team, learning how to hire properly, learning how to fire quickly, all of those things. And my practice started working, right? And it was working, it was profitable. I found a doctor who only wanted to work 1 day a week on Friday. I hired her, so I had a long weekend every weekend. Life was magical. And then we got to 2016, and I just had this this knowing that medicine as we know it is gone. And if all you know how to do is to doctor, you're out of luck. And it's time to retool yourself for what's coming. And I'm thinking, well, what else is there? What else is there to do? I'm a physician. I see patients. And so I started thinking, I was like, okay, well, I'm running a successful practice. I guess I could teach other people how to do that. That's one thing I could do. And then it's like, people write books. I guess I could do that too. I said, even for my private practice, I'm the lead pediatrician, but what if I could be the CEO and I could be as impactful with what I do as a CEO, not just what I do clinically? And I was like, people speak, they're speakers who, this is their whole career. I started thinking about all these things. And that's when I started retooling myself intentionally, knowing that a time is coming where doctors will not have job security, where they'll have a significant loss of autonomy, where, I mean, like the system will write them. Like that's just the way it's going to play out. And I can't tell you this is how I know. It's not something I saw. It's just intuition, I guess. And I started doing all these things. So I started learning to be a speaker and I started learning, all these skills, started showing up as a CEO. I'm like, what is the job of a CEO? I don't even know. I've had my practice for years. I don't even know what that is. And I started developing all those skills. And when I started, I said, okay, wait, hold on. This is going to be terrible for a million physicians, right? Like there's a million physicians, not just me. And I said, okay, there's no time for me to go learn all these things and then come back and say, hey guys, this is what is going on. Like I've learned enough to help a subsect of physicians, and then we can go and then just prepare ourselves for this new world we're going to find ourselves in. And that's literally how EntreMD was born. And so it started with a few one-on-one clients, and then it became a podcast, and then it became, a live event, and then it became the EntreMD Business School and the books we've written and all of that. But it's one mission, right? Because if you think about it, when I started studying movements, I discovered that if you can shift 5% of the population of a population, then you can shift the whole population. And I like, okay, great. And Michael said, what's 10% of a million? It's 100,000. It's like, so if I help 100,000 physicians and they understand that business is the great equalizer, like if I can embrace entrepreneurship, I can get back my autonomy, I can get back my financial freedom, I can get back my stability, I can get back my life, I can build a dream business and my dream life concurrently. Like business is the equalizer. And if I can get them to embrace this so they can build profitable businesses, so they can live life and practice medicine on their terms, then the entire physician community will shift. And so for the last 6 years, almost 7 years, that's been the agenda. Like, how can we help? How can we help doctors figure this out, whichever type of business they want to run? Because what is happening is not okay. And the United States is not going to survive when the physician community is not thriving. Like they're just not going to survive it.
That is such a powerful sentiment and mission. Medicine as we know is gone. And I think that is a very important thing to recognize. And you were early in your recognition of that, because through the COVID pandemic, we've really seen the toll that it's taken for doctors to be employees and not entrepreneurs anymore, not to be the practice owners anymore. And we've seen the shift now where the large conglomerations, the private equity owned businesses that are running healthcare that we're working for are really juicing physicians for all they're worth, and not taking care of us, and a lot of us are feeling dissatisfaction that comes from just being a worker, but holding so much responsibility in our hands and not being supported, right? And so I've heard from so many physicians that are wanting to take the entrepreneurial step, but it's difficult. Even Myself, I've struggled for the last couple of years finding the strength and the mindset to take the leap, right? So what are some mindset shifts that doctors need to make to take that entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I think the starting point is now entrepreneurship is tough, but so is everything else in life, right? And so is being burnt out, and so is not having autonomy. And it's all tough. We get to choose which tough we want, right? And so I think for me, the starting point is this is identifying what makes our success almost inevitable. And I'll explain what I mean by that. If you think about what we've done, we have evidence that we can do hard things. We have evidence that if you give us a decade, we can completely change our lives. Like, think about, like, I'm a pediatrician, right? And so once upon a time, I was this, pimply teenager who just made the family announcement that I was going to be a doctor. Okay. Which is more impossible than being an entrepreneur. If you think about it, right? It's more impossible. And then I decided that I was going to become, right? It wasn't the title, it wasn't the white coat, it wasn't the office, it wasn't any of that. I decided I was going to do the work to become a physician. Now, what happens with entrepreneurship is we think it's external. I'm going to sign the lease. I'm going to get the building. I'm going to get the title. I'm going to get the LLC. I'm going to do all of that. I'm going to get the team. It doesn't start from there. Just like with becoming a physician, it didn't start from there. It starts from me becoming an entrepreneur. I have to evolve. Once we resist this, everything else is painful because we're not going to hire because, oh, who will agree to work with me? We're not going to have team meetings because we're like, oh, if I upset my team, they'll leave, and who else is going to work with me? We're not going to ask people to work with us because, like, oh, I'm embarrassed to ask for stuff. I don't want to seem desperate. And that all comes from you're not an entrepreneur. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, the starting point is I have to change. So what does that mean? That means I start thinking like an entrepreneur. I have the mindset of an entrepreneur. So for instance, this whole concept of if it will be done right, I do it. Entrepreneurs don't think that way. Entrepreneurs are like, this is what needs to be done. Now, who is the who I can give this to so they get it done, right? We think the only way we can make money is I go do work and I get paid. An entrepreneur understands I build a business asset, a business, and that business does work and I get paid, right? Which is a completely different way of thinking. Like an entrepreneur is thinking I have to hustle, not an entrepreneur, like a physician, I have to hustle, do all these things over all this time. An entrepreneur is thinking, what is the most important work? What is the thing that actually moves the needle? Even if it's uncomfortable, I'm going to spend most of my time doing that so I can get a lot done by doing less, like in less time, right? An entrepreneur sees themselves the way a real estate investor sees real estate. I'm an asset. And so I invest in this asset. I don't run away from investing to become the same way I didn't run away from investing $250,000. I didn't, but people do, right? To become a physician. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, so it's the starting point is me. So sometimes people ask me, all these things I need to learn about entrepreneurship. Do I wait till I open my practice and then I can start learning them? I'm like, opening your practice does not make you an entrepreneur. It makes you a physician who has a building.
Mhm.
Becoming an entrepreneur makes you an entrepreneur, right? That also means that there's skills we learn. We learn to market. It's not a dirty word. We learn to sell. It's not a dirty word. We learn to network. Some people say I'm an introvert. I'm like, so am I. Networking is not a personality type. It's a skill, right? We learn to do that. We learn to speak. We learn to build team. We learn to build brands. We learn how, like, what is the revenue generation system? How do I make money? We're comfortable talking about money because we're in an economic world and a business is an economic sport. So it's see all these transitions. The more transitions we experience, the easier the journey of an entrepreneur is. It's not the external things. And a lot of times that's what we go for. Even with marketing, it's like, I'm just going to hire a marketing team. And when people say that, it's not because they're strategically building a team, because I don't want to market. So I'm going to abdicate and delegate all this stuff and have nothing to do with it. And people have had their private practices, for instance, shut down because they're paying some marketing team $12,000 a month. They don't know how to lead them because they don't even know anything they don't know the first thing about marketing. So when they tell them, oh, we've been doing all these things and look at all these stats and all, they can't look at it and say, this is nonsense. Like, this person is just selling me foolishness because what they're talking about is not making any difference in my business, but they don't know because they don't know anything about marketing.
Right.
So I know that's a long answer, but the bottom line is the starting point is I did all this work to become a physician. Now there's other work I'm going to do to become an entrepreneur, because entrepreneurs are the people who build businesses.
So let's focus in on DPC, which is
Yes.
direct primary care. And in the direct primary care model, the physician is basically selling their time in order to serve their patients the way they want to be served, which is, 24/7 access and potentially. And
You saw the look, right?
yeah, I saw the look. So how do we apply that mindset to a DPC?
Yeah, so again, right? Like we have to go back to the drawing board. Like 24 access really? Is that what we really want to offer? Like when you
Mhm.
think about if you're going to do a DPC practice, is that what you really want to do? And I'm starting from there because when it comes to entrepreneurship, we get to build what we want. Right? Like we get to so the care you want to give your patients, does it require 24/7 access? Or are we saying that because somebody else said that? That's number one. Number two, you're one person, one physician running a direct primary care practice. Can you actually fulfill on that promise? Can you, if all your patients decided to take you up on 24/7 access, could you actually deliver on it? And the truth of the matter is, you couldn't.
Yeah.
You can't deliver on it.
That's one thing that's like been scaring me about DPC is that how am I going to be on call 24/7, 7 days a week?
But this is the thing. An entrepreneur, this is the way an entrepreneur thinks. My patient or my client, so in this case, your patient has a problem, and I'm building a business to solve that problem. Okay. Does that person need 24/7 access with the doctor? Because sometimes people say, oh, if you come to my direct primary care clinic, you get practice, you get 24/7 access, you get 1 hour long appointments and all those things. The question is that what they want?
Mm,
If you think about it, is that real? Like who goes and says, I want a 1 hour visit with my doctor? They say they don't want a rushed visit, which is very different. There's no timestamp there, right?
right.
And so the question becomes, what do I actually need to give my people so they get the solution that they want, right? And so if they have access in this, in terms of they can get next day appointments or same day appointments and all of that stuff, then do they need 24/7 access?
Not
So
really.
if they don't need 24/7 access, we don't have to give like that. We're making that like if they don't need it, why are we saying that? Because we don't want it and it burns us out.
Mhm.
Do you see what I'm saying? So what do they need? If they have same day access, they have next day access, they know what to do in the case of an emergency, or they're only calling you for true emergencies. It's like you pick up or I'm going to the ER, then yes, they can and your patients will treat you the way you train them to. And so if you train them like, yeah, call me anytime. Like, why would you say that? You don't want them to call you anytime. Like nobody wants it. You have a panel of 300, you want them to call you every time. You don't want that, right? So say what you mean. And what you mean is if you need to be seen, we can get you in same day. We can get you in next day. If for some reason there's a true emergency that happens and all of that stuff, you have access to your doctor and stuff. If you have that, then you're like, okay, I want that. Do you see which is a different way of thinking than just saying call me anytime because it's not true. You're one person.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying? And
Yes.
even with, like I'm one doctor taking care of these patients. Well, when it comes to a business, you always want to build, this is my philosophy, right? I don't want to build a job. I want to build a business that can work if I'm not there. Now, to be very clear, this is a multi year process. This is not something you wake up and say, I'm going to do this tomorrow, and then you do it if you're starting. But if you build with that in mind, you're always working towards that. So for me, I told you that I had this moment where it's like, oh my, after I saw my first patient, like, oh my goodness, am I going to do this every day until I retire? And about that time, I made the decision. I was like, I think I can do this for 10 years. I don't think I can do it for more than 10 years. And I'm not telling anybody to do that. That's me because I knew I had multiple things that I needed to do in my life. I had no clue what they were, but I just had that sense. And so when I started building my private practice, I started building it like if I needed to exit in 10 years, I need to build what I can exit from. like from the beginning, right? And I need to build something where I can build it and have a life. So again, let's go back to your DPC model. If I'm the only doctor, then there are a number of things you're looking at. One is I would probably build a network of other doctors who are DPC doctors so we can cross cover each other. So if I want to take time off, I'll take time off. I don't want to be chained. I don't want to leave the chains of, employment to now have the chains I built, like custom chains I built for myself, linking myself to my practice. I can never walk away. So I'll strategically build a network, and a nice size network, maybe 5 doctors, 7 doctors, 10, 12. So if I wanted to step away, we have similar ways of practice, or at least they know the way I practice and stuff like that. I can walk away and go have a life. If I wanted to take a vacation, I could go. And it's not that every time I go, my practice shuts down. Every time I go, money is still being created. Do you see what I mean? While I'm wherever doing whatever I'm doing. That's one thing. The other thing is you then look like, how can I build systems and automations? And I'm not talking about taking the humanity out of medicine, but you want to ask yourself, it takes me an hour to complete this visit. What are the things that are redundancies? What are the things that are bottlenecks? What are the things that somebody else, if I had an MA, for instance, they could take 20 minutes off this visit. If I can, if I can get someone to take 20 minutes off a visit, you best believe I'm doing that all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. Right? Because now it's a team approach and I'm sharing that. What that means is if I wanted to see more patients or if I wanted to take more time off, this MA allows me to do that. Right? What is something I'm doing over and over and over again that technology could do for me? Right? If technology saves me another 10 minutes per visit, then when the patient's getting an hour, let's say an hour is the number, they're getting an hour. My business is giving them an hour. The team is giving them an hour. The system I built, like all of this stuff together, is giving an hour. It doesn't have to be me. Do you see what I'm saying? And so
Yes.
when you think in that way, then you can build something that has the capacity to do more with you doing less. And then you have your dream life. Now, let me tell you why I keep talking about this whole dream life affair. In our training, we're like, oh, high school, I'm going to do all the things I need to do. So I get into a good pre-med program and pre-med, oh, I have to do this and all that stuff. So I get into good med school and then med school. Oh my goodness, I'm burning the candle on every possible end because, when I do this, I get into good residency and all that stuff. And we're like, and when I become an attending, it'll be all worth it. Okay. So we then become an attending. And it's like, yeah, now the administrator said I have to do this and that and that. And I have to do this to keep my job. And it doesn't end. At some point, we need to say the end. At some point, we have to decide, okay, enough. I've been sacrificing like for over a decade. Okay. For some of us, 2 decades, 3 decades. And that doesn't mean we don't work hard, but my goodness, we have other aspects of our lives. We have our families, we have our health, we have our social networks, we have our intellectual development, like for other things. We have personal finance we have to take care of. There's so many other things. It can't be this all encompassing, I can't think about anything but medicine kind of life. It's now time to build that rich life where the other areas of our lives get attention, right? And so when building a business, you want to build it in such a way that allows you to help a lot of people. It creates financial freedom for you. And then it allows you to build this dream life, to live life on your terms. That's what I consider a successful business. So I know I've taken you to town and back, but that's the way I think about it. And even one of so there are two things you talked about DPC, so let's just go there for a little bit. There are two things that I find are the biggest challenges that like that DPC doctors will face. These are the two things that make that model stressful for them. It's a workable model, very workable model. The first one is not honoring boundaries. We've talked about that a little bit, right? Like, so with the 24/7 access and all, you want to train your patients on how to treat you. So we want to do what is necessary, but we don't want to have all this unrestricted access to us because you need the currency of a dream life is time. So you need the time, right? You don't set yourself up for abuse, which that happens quite a bit. Okay, so the boundaries, that's one piece. And so you see burnout start creeping in. You only have 100. I met a doctor, she had, I want to say 50 patients or so. And she's like, she didn't want to grow because it's so overwhelming taking care of 50 patients. And I know what that is. I know there are no boundaries, right?
Mm.
50 patients should not be overwhelming. It's the boundaries that are not there. So anybody building, you want to build that. Okay. And then the second thing is pricing, right? Is pricing.
Right.
And the idea here is business is an economic sport, and we do math problems in business, and the math must math. Okay. So somebody will tell me, I want to do low pricing because I want everybody to have access to healthcare. And they deserve a lot of time. So I want to give them all an hour, right? And they can call me anytime. Okay, so the problem with that is when you have a low ticket offer, which is what a DP, and I don't mean it's a low offer, I'm just saying the monetary value, right? When you have a low ticket offer, in order for you to still make what you want to make, you're going to need more volume.
Mm-hmm.
Period. That's the only way this works. You're going to
Right.
need more volume to offset for the low price. Now, if you want to have low price and low value, you're going to have low revenue. And if you have low revenue, you're not going to be able to pay yourself what you need to pay yourself. So you're going to need to go work another job. So the question is that what you set out to do? Did you set out to build a practice where you have all these patients, they have access to you whenever they want, you're charging itty bitty amount, so you have to go work another job to pay the bills? Like, is that what you set out to do? And if that's not what you set out to do, then something has to give. It's not about what Dr. Una is saying. I'm just showing the math. The math doesn't math. And so if we want to earn a specific amount, and there's no amount, like whatever amount that is for the person, if you want to earn a specific amount, you can do low price, high volume. You can do high price, low volume. You can do mid price, mid volume. But low price, low volume, there's no universe where that works. And so people say, oh, but I want people to have access. Some people are millionaires and they will never pay for DPC because they know the insurance model and that's what they want. There's some people who value a personal relationship with their doctor. They like the family doctor type of model and all of those things, and they'll pay for that. And there's almost no universe where DPC is actually expensive. Like, it's more expensive than what? The shoes they wore into your office, the Brazilian wig they have on, like compared to what, right? Like,
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying? And so these are two things that, we have to become in order to overcome these two things, so we can enjoy it. We can enjoy being DPC docs and all of that.
Yeah. So what you're saying makes sense. Set boundaries. How do you set boundaries but convince people to join your practice and pay cash? How do you do that in a way that people stick around?
Yeah, so think about any other profession, right? Like, if you went to see a lawyer, some of them would charge you $350 an hour and all of those things. But your $350 does not give you the right to call them whenever you want,
Right.
right?
That's
Same
true.
with a plumber, same with anybody else, same with a babysitter. Like, it doesn't matter who it is. So remember, if we're amongst ourselves, DPC doc, we're like, okay, this person is doing this person is doing that. But that's not the expectation of the patient. They're not thinking about that. They're thinking about, I want to have a personal relationship with my doctor. Do you need 24/7 access to do that? No. I want to be able to get in a reasonable time to see my doctor, because in this insurance-based private practice, for instance, I have to wait 2 weeks. Okay. So is there any universe where next day or 2 days is so terrible compared to 2 weeks? There isn't. You're still giving them the advantage that they want. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
They're tired of seeing a different doctor every single time. Okay, they're going to see you 90% of, and you can tell them 90% of the time, because sometimes, like you, I will be on vacation. Do you see what I'm saying? Right?
Right.
So you want to think about what they're thinking about. They're not thinking about what is on everybody else's website. So you have conversations with patients, you'll find out they're not thinking about that. They're not
Right.
thinking about that at all. This is also something we want to lean into. They pay cash for many things. They pay cash for a whole ton of stuff. And it doesn't give them 24/7 access to whoever they paid cash. It just doesn't.
Right.
It
Right.
doesn't. So we have to ask ourselves, did we make that up?
Mhm.
Did we make it up?
Yeah, it's true. Oftentimes when I talk about DPC and I tell people $100 a month, unfettered access, same day, next day visits, maybe 24/7 access, and unlimited care, they're like, really? Is there what's the, it's hard to believe, right? It's too much, really, almost.
In my mind, it's too much. And the question is, what are we setting ourselves up for? If someone
Right,
said yes to that and that was their expectation,
right.
that's a lot. So I am more a fan of, for instance, I do a lot of stuff. I do so much stuff that I cannot tell a human being in this world other than my family, meaning my kids and my husband and my kids, that they can have 24/7 access to me. Okay, like I have a lot of stuff going on. However, I'm still able to help a whole lot of people, and it's not tied to unfettered access. What it is tied to is me being diligent to constantly figure out, what do my people want? What do my people need? And I make sure I'm always delivering on that. Do you see what I'm so for instance, in the EntreMD Business School, for instance, it's a group setting. There is no one-on-one, like private one-on-one or anything like that. But doctors still go in there and start as employed and get to multi-million dollars in revenue. How come? I'm constantly thinking, what do they need? What are the limiting beliefs that are stopping them? What are the goals they're trying to hit that they're not able to hit? What is the strategy they don't know? You see what I'm saying? So I'm making sure that everything I deliver is on point, addressing what they need, showing them, a picture of a preferred, like this is where this can be, and all of that. So everything that I develop is to help them get solutions. So even though they may not sit one on one with me, like of course, like when we have group calls, we do Q&As and stuff like that. So they do get one on one, but it's in a group setting. But at the end of the day, they may not have private one-on-ones and stuff like that, but they're still getting insane results. Why? I am obsessed, healthy obsession, but I'm obsessed with what their problems are, what life can be like, what is the bridge? And I'm constantly looking for ways to get them there. So
Mm,
the container matters less than the problem and the solution, right? And so the more you talk to your patients, you're like, you get a feel for what they need, what is missing, all of those kind of things. And you can start delivering on that, because it's not 24/7 access. It's just that's not the answer.
mm,
Nobody's waking up at night frustrated with the clinic they're in now, thinking I just want 24/7 access.
right.
Nobody's thinking that. So the question is, what are they thinking? Can we
Mm.
deliver on that? Yeah.
So, what does a successful DPC practice look like from your perspective?
So it would depend on the person, right?
Mhm.
Because again, I'm such a fan of, when it comes to entrepreneurship, building what you want that is in alignment with what it is you want to do, right?
Mm.
Okay. So for some people, so I'll give you categories, but the exact number or quality will depend on the person. So it needs to be profitable.
Yes.
It needs to be profitable. And when it's at full capacity or wherever you want it to be, it needs to be not just profitable, but in a place where it is paying you, so you're not needing to do other things to supplement. If you need to supplement in the beginning, that's fine. I supplemented when I started my private practice and all that stuff. That's not an issue. When the model is where it needs to be, it needs to pay you. It needs to create some kind of financial freedom for you. And not just a salary, right? Like, so you have your salary, but you're an entrepreneur. So it's not just salary. There should be something else you can, put away, invest, whatever it is you want to do, right? So there's revenue. There's also impact, right? Like, we get a lot of significance from that, because for the most part, that's why we went to medical school, right? Like, so what kind of life change are you able to create, right? And so if you're thinking you're really big on obesity, what kind of changes have you created in the world? You're big on reversing, chronic disease. What kind of changes? Maybe your thing is menopause. What kind of changes? Like, it is a practice that is changing lives, right? So there's the impact, there's the revenue, right? Depending on who you are, like someone like me, innovation is like a love language, right? And so you being able to build, like a DPC successful for me, like again, when it's at full capacity, is in such a way that you're not tied to it, you're not chained to it. It is an entity separate from you. So there's you, the entrepreneur, and there's this business assets that you have, which means then that if you wanted to walk away from it, you can walk away from it. Now, this part is a multi-year, it's an intentional multi-year process, but we can get there, right? Like the last time I set foot in my practice was almost 4 years ago. I haven't
Wow.
been there. And I talk about it because part of and like I did it for my reasons, right? But also I talk about it because I want that to be a vision board for physicians to see you can build a business asset that can work with that. That's the whole, like there are many people in the business world who build businesses with the intention of exiting. They're like when they're building, they know when they're exiting. Okay. We don't have to exit. Nobody has to exit, right? My journey is my journey, but you want to build it so you have options.
Mm.
You have to have, so I had a doc, I can't remember the exact number. I think she had been in practice 30 years. 30 years. She wanted
That's a
to
long
sell her
time.
practice. And I was like, huh, maybe this is an expansion move for us and all that stuff. We go see the practice. She was trying to sell it for $40,000.
That doesn't sound like much.
It's not much, but I couldn't pay 40,000 for it because it was her job.
Mm.
It was her job. There were no systems. She was still on paper charts. She didn't own the building. She had no team members who could run the practice if she wasn't there. They didn't have company knowledge. Do you see what I'm saying? There was nothing to buy. It was, you see what I'm saying? There was no
It was too
business. It
tied
was
to
her
her.
job. So she had her job for 30 years. And so when she was done, she had to shut it down. Nobody would pay for it.
Mm.
Nobody would pay. Like even at 40,000, there was no value in it. Right. And I saw that early on. I must have been second year in private practice. I was like, this will never happen to me. Never happen where I spent 40 because entrepreneurship is not an easy thing to do. Like, why would I spend 30,000 to do it to have no reward at the end of the day?
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? Like, why would I do it that way? And
Right.
so for me, you want to start build, and you're not gonna. And I keep saying multi-year process because sometimes people say, I'm ready, I want to exit. I'm like, that's not the way that works. That's not the way that works. It's a multi-year process because you have to build the systems, you have to build a team, you have to stress test it, right? Like I'm gone for a month. What happened? I'm gone. What broke? Okay, then you come back to the drawing board and you start fixing, and then there'll be lots of delays and disappointments and all those things along the way. So it's a multi-year process, but we should all aim to do that. Like, why not? What do we have to lose? It doesn't mean you'll sell it, but we're all going to exit, right? It's either like we're all going to exit, we're all going to die. So the business is going to it's going to need to go somewhere at some point.
Right. I mean, starting a business is not an easy thing. It's even harder than working as an employee. I think in the beginning, you have to put in the sweat equity into your business, right? And to get it going. And why would you do all of that just for it to dissolve at the
Yeah.
end of your career whenever you're done being a doctor?
Yeah.
I 100% agree that there needs to be a legacy. So tell me about your personal journey. Tell me about what happened to your practice. How did you get it to the point where you haven't walked into your practice in 4 years and it's still going?
Well, so for me, like I said, it was my intention from the beginning, right? I want to build something, and it wasn't to sell, but I wanted to build something that I can then walk away from. And it's a system; it works on its own. And so it started off from the little steps because it doesn't start from building something that exits. It first starts with making it profitable. Because if it's not profitable, you can't pay for the team that will run the business. It's
Mhm.
as simple as that, right? And so in that stage of making it profitable, the big thing is marketing, it's selling, it's retaining your patients, it's all of those kind of things. And again, that's a Herculean task. And notice I said profitable, not creating revenue, because I've seen practices that bring in 1 million and spend 900,000. So you know what I mean, what I'm saying. So it needs to be profitable. Managing expenses, all of those things. So all of that's the first phase. Then after that phase, you start bringing on team. Well, these overlap, so it's not like one to the. It's not sequential in that way. So the next stage is really bringing on team members, and in the beginning your team members will really be producers. So my practice is insurance based private practice, and so you're talking of your ma, your front desk, your biller, all of those kind of things, bringing them on and building a cohesive team, right? Which will involve things we don't like to do, like holding team meetings, casting vision, holding people accountable when they're not delivering on the outcomes, having clear outcomes. we say dehiring, not firing, dehiring them quickly, because there is nothing that will get rid of rock stars from your team like keeping incompetent people. They will leave because it's like whether I work hard or not, we're paid the same, we're treated the same, and nobody addresses the people who are not pulling their own weight. So I'm out. Right. And so all of those things, they're all like quote unquote difficult things. Like you will have to evolve to pull those things off. You see what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
so you start bringing in those kind of team members. And then the next stage, which again, these are not, is not one after the other, is then building the system, right? So for instance, when I started my practice has would have a character when I'm there and a different character when I'm not there. Right? Like because the you're the one driving the call, driving everything. So if you're not there, then it's like whoo, you know. And so
Right.
what is the fix for that? One is, train the team, but the other thing is building those systems, because we all have what I call unconscious competence. Like you have a way of doing things that creates a result, but you've never taken the time to unscramble the spaghetti in your head to realize like this is what I actually do. And so because you don't know what it is, you can't teach anybody. You can't document it. It's not an SOP and stuff like that. I'll give you an example. When I started hiring other doctors, then people say, I only want to see Dr. Una, right? And this does not work if you're trying to exit. That's not the way this works. And so one day I had to sit down. I'm like, why do they say that? Like, I know I'm a special human being, but I'm not, I'm a pediatrician, they're a pediatrician. Like, we're not that different. So
Mhm.
it's not something like that is so unique to me that, like, it's not that serious. Okay. So I started thinking, I was like, what is it that I do? And I was like, okay, you always walk into the room. Like I walk into a room with the intent to control the atmosphere of the room. So even if people are in there, they're mad and all that, I come with high energy, happy, almost sing song voice, all that stuff. So whatever that was, it toned it all the way down. I did it intentionally, but I didn't know till I started like, what is it that I do? Right. And then when I walk in, I will always give the mom, the parent there, a compliment. How many seconds does it take to do that? Like your hair. You change your hair, it's red now. I like it. Or whatever. Or the kid, I'm like, oh my goodness, your son is like the handsomest kid I've seen today. Like all just stuff like that, right? I do that intentionally. And then I make sure I review like all the stuff they came. I make them write all that stuff before I get into the room. So I don't have to ask all these redundant questions over and over again. Right. So I have it there. So when I walk into the room, I can sit and look them in the face and address the most important reason for their visit. Right. So you see what I'm saying? Like, but I didn't, again, we have unconscious competence. And so then you start documenting those things, because guess what I can do? I can train anybody to do those things. Like I can treat and I'm walk in the room, give a compliment, do this, then look them in the eye, and blah 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 blah. And like I would always reassure the patient, so much so that they're like, Dr. Una, we just come here because you're like our therapist, right? And I wasn't doing any therapy, but I'm a mother. I have 4 children. I understand how vulnerable it makes you, how much you think that you're messing up your kids, and all. I understand that, and so I will always reassure them. So if all the doctors did only two of the 4, 5, 6 things, people will go like, yeah, and I want to see them too. You see what I'm saying? It's not because I'm magical. There's something I was doing. So you start building those systems. You're able to get people out in under an hour and they're excited. And somebody else spends more time with them and they're mad. Why is that? And how do you get them out? Right? So these are all things, they're all systems. And so we start taking it out of our heads and putting it on paper and training other people so they can run the system. And then after that, then you start talking about hiring like more manager level people, right? Like a true office manager or practice administrator who can run it. They understand these are the core, objectives of the practice. They understand how to make those objectives a reality and all of those things. So it's a progressive thing. And you get to then you start stress testing, because you're like, oh yeah, I got this. And then you go away for 2 weeks and all hell breaks loose. And then you come back and you're like, okay, let's do postmortem. What happened here? Right? You know what I mean? Because you can't the first time you walk, the time you walk away can't be the first time you walk away. You have to practice and see what happens, where the loopholes, where things falling apart. So it's a process, but if you see this, you can see that you can start doing that from the beginning. If that's your intent, you can start at the beginning. So when I work with people, they may or may not know it, but I know. I'm like, we're going to show you how to do this in a way that when you get to the point where you want to exit, you're like, oh, I've been building to exit this whole time. In fact, one of our clients said to me, she said, I remember when you started talking about this whole exit thing. I had just started my practice. I'm like, what? I'm going to be a doctor for like 7,000 years. Like, I'm exaggerating. Like 7,000 years. I don't need all this stuff. She's like, but I just did what you said. And now she's in a position where she needs to be gone for a practice, sometimes for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month, multiple times a year. And guess what? Her practice can handle it. And her practice continues to grow in spite of it because she built with the end in mind. And that's what an entrepreneur will do.
Dang, I am so inspired, Dr. Una. So, how do we learn from you? How do we get into your school?
Yeah. So there are a number of ways. The school itself, in my mind, it's going to be 5 years old in a few
Wow.
weeks. I'm so excited. Yeah. It's a place for doctors to become, right? Like, so we do the strategy, we do the marketing, the profitable team, all of those things. But the most important part is the evolution. That's why I tell people in the business school, I'm like, most of you are going to become serial entrepreneurs. I know you don't believe me now, but that's okay. Because when you become an entrepreneur, what do? You build businesses. That's what entrepreneurs do. And it's always so happy. And so what we do there is, we give you the mentorship, we give you the coaching, the strategy, all of those things, and then the accountability. And then you have a community of docs just like you who are building stuff, who are building things they'll exit from and all. And so that's EntreMD.com/business. You definitely want to check it out. You can book a call there with my team and stuff. And before that, we have the EntreMD podcast where, we talk shop the entire time. We have a number of books we've done. You could check those out as well, because we truly want to help all million physicians. You know what I mean? Some will come into the business school, some won't, but we have something for everybody. You just definitely want to, check it out and share the love because there's so much work to be done.
Thank you so much, Dr. Una. I know my audience is frugal minded. So if you don't mind sharing, how much does your business school cost?
Okay. So the investment for the business school, notice I call it an investment, is $30,000. And if you are frugal, then you should do it. And I'll tell you why. Because sometimes people will tell me the EntreMD Business School is expensive. And then I say, compared to what? Right? So you have a doctor who had a private practice for 30 years who couldn't sell it. If she was in the business school and she stayed there for 10 years, she would have paid $300,000. Do you think she would have had a return on her investment? Yeah, right. And if you think about, the problem, I used to say this, I don't know if you used to say this, like ignorance is bliss, and all that stuff. Not when you're an entrepreneur. Every mistake costs literal dollars. You keep the wrong person on, and the person is doing terrible work and makes your high competent people leave. That costs you more than $30,000, right? Some nice salesman comes and sells you on some laser machine and tells you, oh yeah, all you need is 3 people a month and it'll pay for the laser machine. I can't tell you how. I talk about this all the time because I cannot tell you how many times this has happened. And they're like, and I'm like, you already don't have the 3 people. Like, what is this, right? And they sign a lease for a machine without knowing the actual numbers. It turns out to be $450,000. That's a house.
Mm,
That's a house,
mhm.
right? So if 30,000 stops you from making that mistake, right? Okay. If your practice could be doing $300,000, $500,000 and is doing $200,000 because of something you don't know or a mindset shift you haven't had, is $30,000 really expensive? Do you see what I mean? So the real expense in business is the opportunity cost of not knowing things, the consequences of mistakes made. Those are expensive. The EntreMD Business School is not. So it's 30,000. It's 30,000 for the year. And if you went to do an MBA, it would be what, 60,000 to 150,000. And let me tell you what doctors do when they're done with their MBA. They come to the EntreMD Business School. They're like, I have the degree now, but now I need to learn how to actually build a business. And then they come to the business school. So consider me saving you 150,000 in an MBA first.
I love that. You are right. I mean, I've built one business now and I've seen the mistakes I've made, and I definitely don't want to keep doing that as I move forward. So get ready. You might be looking at a new application soon.
Oh, that'll be fun. And I'll tell you something about people like you. that's somebody who is an action taker, who's willing to do it and all of that stuff, you're the kind of people who thrive the most, because it's like we try to put as much, if I could help a doctor win without their input, I would. It's a messiah complex. You can't, right? But I wish I could. And so like, it's almost like we put everything together. The only thing left is your action. You know what I mean? And so if you're an action taker, it's like, rah, So when I see people who are action takers, I'm like, oh my goodness, like you'll just kill it because you're just like, point me in the direction. I got
Yes.
this.
Yes, exactly.
So I love people like you. I'll tell you that.
Oh, wonderful. Well, Dr. Una, thank you so much. Let's finish up. I know I've taken up a lot of your time, so let's finish up with a lighthearted segment. Just answer with the first thing that comes to mind. I just want people to get to know you a little bit better.
Okay.
All right. So what's your go-to Starbucks order?
I used to do a naked juice, the mango. That's
Oh,
what I would
yes.
get that's what I get from Starbucks till I found out it has 52 grams of sugar. Then I just drink water.
I know those mighty mangoes. They're like more expensive than the lattes, but they're delicious.
They're
and
delicious,
super
but
sugary.
yeah, too
Yes,
much
yeah,
sugar.
that's my go-to pickup when I'm like on a long shift and,
Oh, yeah?
it's just sucking a mighty mango. Oh,
Okay.
yeah, for sure.
Well, there you go. You and I
I'm with
both.
Favorite business book of all time?
Wow. Okay, I'll give you two because the first one is the Bible. I did not know that. It's so many business principles there. So much so that I started a whole podcast called Success by the Book because I'm like, oh my goodness, it's all there. But other than that, I'll give you the favorite. It's hard. I'll just give you one I've read the most. And that's 10X is Easier Than 2X by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. I've read it 9 times. It was released May of 2023, and I've read it 9 times. It's a really
Wow.
good book. Yeah, I recommend it to everybody. I had the business school read it twice. It's really good.
So next one, Atlanta summers. Love them or leave them?
I love them. I spent 20 years of my growing life in Nigeria, so the heat doesn't scare me. I like Atlanta. I really do.
Yeah. It's true. I'm in upstate New York now, but it just does not get hot enough in the summer. It's not satisfying. I need to be sweating, and then the pool needs to be like completely lukewarm.
Yeah, I love it.
Yes. What's one thing you do every single day that keeps you grounded?
I take walks outside.
Yeah.
I live in a wooded area, kind of, so it's like walking in nature. Yeah.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
That's a good one. Probably Jim Rohn. I can't say, you heard it. It was something he said. He said, "Don't wish it was easier. Wish you were better." It's all about becoming, right? It's like the craziness we see in the healthcare space. Don't wish it goes away. Become better. If you become better, you can rise above it. Yeah.
I like that. I love that. Dr. Una, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom with the DPC community. You've given us not just practical strategies, but also the belief that it's possible to build a thriving business while staying true to our calling in medicine and building our ideal lives. So thank you. If you're a physician thinking about starting a DPC or growing the one you've already built, I can't recommend the EntreMD podcast, Dr. Una's books, or the EntreMD Business School enough. These are incredible resources that meet you exactly where you are and help you build the business you didn't learn about in medical school. We'll link to everything in the show notes. And to you, dear listener, thank you for being here. If you found this episode helpful, please leave a review, share it with your physician friends, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a moment of inspiration and guidance on your path to financial freedom. Until next time, keep healing, keep building, and remember, in DPC, you don't just own your practice, you own your future. Stay frugal, y'all.
The content shared on this podcast should not be taken as individualized financial advice. We are here to share our knowledge and experiences, but it is crucial to consult with professionals such as accountants, financial advisors, or attorneys who can provide personalized guidance based on your specific needs.